33 Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. It contains themes of emotional conflict, relationship complexities, and infidelity, which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The purpose of this video is not to promote or glorify betrayal, but to portray a true emotional story highlighting the raw and complex nature of human relationships. If you are sensitive to topics involving betrayal, emotional affairs, or infidelity, please consider whether this content is right for you. Watch responsibly. Sometimes life takes you to a point where your heart and your mind start fighting with each other. I always believed I was satisfied in my marriage, or maybe I just kept convincing myself of that. My husband is a good man, hardworking, but he's almost never fully present at home. His world revolves around his business, endless meetings, phone calls, deadlines. Slowly, I had stopped expecting romance or even attention. Our life had become mechanical. Morning tea, silent dinners, awkward smiles. We were together, but I was starting to feel very alone. And then there was him, Arif, my stepson. He was my husband's son from his first marriage. A young man, polite, respectful, a little reserved. I always treated him like my own, even though there was still that slight distance between us, like we were both being careful around each other. He had recently started living with us more regularly, mostly because of some issues with his college hostel. I didn't think much of it. After all, I was the caretaker of this home, and he was family. But sometimes, family can surprise you in ways you never expect. It started with small things. Helping him with laundry, asking him about his studies, making his favorite breakfast. Little domestic moments that felt ordinary until they didn't. That particular afternoon, I was folding clothes when I heard him call from his room, "Can you help me with this belt? It's stuck or something." I went in without thinking. He stood there, struggling with the metal buckle, frustration on his face. I stepped closer, reaching for the belt to help, and as I touched the cool metal, my hand brushed against his. It was such a small thing, but the way his fingers lingered on mine for that extra second sent a strange rush through me. For a moment, neither of us moved. It wasn't just the belt anymore. There was something else hanging in that air between us, heavy, silent, unspoken. I quickly looked away and forced a small laugh, adjusting the buckle properly. "There you go," I said lightly. "Done." He gave me a look, soft, unreadable, before nodding and stepping back. But that moment sat with me all evening, like an itch under my skin. Why was I thinking about it so much? I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just my own loneliness playing tricks on my heart. But deep down, something inside me whispered, that wasn't nothing. And you know it. The days that followed felt strangely different. It wasn't something I could put into words, but the atmosphere inside the house had shifted. Little things that once felt normal were now carrying weight. Every small conversation with Arif felt like it had an edge to it, a hidden meaning buried beneath the surface. Or maybe it was just me, maybe I was the one overthinking everything, feeling things I shouldn't feel. But then, Arif started spending more time around me. Little excuses. "Is lunch ready yet? Can you help me find my charger? Do you know where Dad kept the car keys?" Small, ordinary things, but now they didn't feel ordinary at all. I tried to ignore it, brushing away the thought that he might be doing it on purpose. After all, he was my stepson. Why would I even think like that? But my mind wasn't helping me. Every time he stood close, I noticed things I shouldn't have noticed, the way he smelled faintly of soap and cologne, the way his jaw tightened when he was focused, the slight nervousness in his eyes when we talked. I hated myself for it, honestly. This was wrong on so many levels, and yet I couldn't stop my thoughts from going there. What made it worse was the growing distance between me and my husband. He was more distracted than ever, barely even noticing the changes in the house, or in me. Sometimes I wondered if he would even notice if I disappeared altogether. He had his business, his calls, his work trips, and I was starting to feel like nothing more than background noise in his life. Loneliness can do strange things to a person. It makes you crave attention, even from places you never expected. One afternoon, it happened again. Another belt moment. This time the excuse was that the belt was twisted, and he couldn't fix it properly. I could have told him to handle it himself, but something in me didn't. I walked into his room again. This time, I was more aware. More nervous. And so was he. As I reached forward to untangle it, I could feel his eyes on me. I avoided his gaze, focused only on the leather strap in my hands. And then, it happened again, that accidental touch. Except it didn't feel accidental anymore. Our fingers brushed, and neither of us moved away immediately. It was subtle, barely noticeable if someone else had been watching, but between us? It was a moment that felt louder than words. His breathing changed slightly. Mine too. I finally fixed the belt, letting my hands fall back quickly to my sides. I didn't even look at him this time. "It's done," I said, my voice lower than usual. And without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out of the room. But that tension followed me. I could feel it behind me like footsteps chasing me down a quiet hallway. Something had changed. And neither of us could pretend it hadn't. I thought ignoring it would make it go away. I thought if I just stayed busy, focused on chores, spent more time in my room, maybe things would slide back to normal. But that's the thing about certain moments, once a boundary breaks, it doesn't rebuild itself so easily. And no matter how many times I told myself this was just in my head, I could feel something shifting between us with every passing day. It wasn't like Arif was doing anything bold or inappropriate. He was still polite, still respectful, still careful. But now, there were these little looks. Quick glances when he thought I wasn't watching. Lingering eye contact that lasted just a second too long. And the worst part? I wasn't stopping it. I wasn't telling him with my eyes that this needed to stop. Instead, I felt myself getting pulled deeper into something I didn't fully understand, or maybe didn't want to understand. At night, I would lay in bed next to my husband, his back always turned to me, completely lost in his sleep or his worries or whatever world he was in. And I would stare at the ceiling, thinking about how empty this bed felt, even with someone sleeping in it. What scared me most was how much that empty feeling was starting to pull me towards something forbidden. Arif wasn't a child anymore. He wasn't a little boy who needed help with his school bag. He was a grown man, standing in front of me with that confused mixture of attraction and restraint, the same mixture I could feel burning inside me. And with every interaction, that restraint felt thinner. One evening, I found him sitting in the living room alone. The TV was on, but he wasn't really watching it. He looked lost in his thoughts, eyes focused on nothing. Without thinking, I asked, "Are you okay?" He looked at me, his jaw tensing slightly. "Yeah. Just thinking." It should have ended there, but it didn't. There was too much silence between us. I should have walked away, but I sat down on the other end of the couch, pretending to fix the cushion, pretending not to notice the heavy air between us. I could feel my heart beating faster, not because of what was happening but because of what could happen. That was when I realized this wasn't just loneliness anymore. This was temptation, quiet, dangerous, standing in my living room like a shadow creeping across the walls. I hated myself for even sitting there, for not moving away, for not breaking whatever this strange thread was that was tying us closer and closer together. But in that moment, neither of us spoke about it. We just sat there, two people pretending to be normal, pretending this wasn't happening, pretending we weren't both thinking about that last time my hand touched his. And deep down, I knew this wasn't going to stop here. Don't know whether it was loneliness, desire, or just the ache of being unseen for so long, but something in me finally gave way that day. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even wanted, not really. But it was like life kept pushing me closer to the edge, one small step at a time, until suddenly there was nowhere else to go but over. It was a Saturday afternoon. The house was quiet, my husband gone for yet another business trip, a routine I'd grown numb to. The same excuses, the same apologies, the same empty bed waiting for me at night. The silence around me felt heavier than usual, pressing against my chest like invisible hands. Arif was in his room, or at least I thought he was, until I heard his voice behind me again. "Can you help me with this? It's twisted again." I froze, standing by the kitchen counter. I should have said no. I should have told him he was old enough to fix his own belt. I should have walked away and protected us both from what was about to happen. But I didn't. When I stepped into his doorway, the room felt smaller than I remembered. He was standing there, holding the belt, looking both nervous and sure at the same time. And that's when I realized, this wasn't an accident anymore. We were both standing at the edge, pretending we didn't know why. I took the belt in my hands like before, but this time my fingers were trembling, and I was sure he could see it. As I tried to fix the twist, I could feel his breath close, his body standing just slightly too near, like he was waiting for something, like we both were. And then it happened. My hand slipped, or maybe I let it slip. The leather of the belt dropped slightly, and his hand moved over mine to steady it. That touch, it wasn't like before. This time, it wasn't accidental. His fingers closed gently over mine, firm but soft, and I felt the heat of his skin against mine like electricity under my skin. I should have pulled away. Every part of my mind was screaming at me to pull away. But my body betrayed me. I looked up at him, finally meeting his eyes. There was nothing playful or innocent in them anymore. There was something raw, something confused but wanting. And the worst part? I saw that same look reflected in my own expression. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. The moment didn't need words. Without thinking, without planning, without meaning to, I leaned in. Maybe it was just a second, maybe longer, I don't even remember. But our lips touched, soft, unsure, dangerous. As soon as it happened, I stepped back, breathless, heart pounding, shame rushing in like a flood. What had I done? But as much as I hated myself in that second, I also knew, it wasn't over. I wish I could say that was the moment I stopped. I wish I could tell you I found my strength, walked away, closed that door forever, and never looked back. But sometimes, when the heart is starved for too long, even the smallest taste of attention feels like an entire feast. And I was starving. After that first kiss, I avoided him for 2 days straight. I busied myself with everything I could, cleaning things that didn't need cleaning, making meals no one asked for, pretending to be asleep when I wasn't. But none of it worked. That one moment kept playing in my head like a broken record. And beneath all the shame and guilt, something darker was growing, want. He didn't push it. That's what made it worse. Arif acted as if nothing had happened. He was polite. Careful. But in his eyes, I could see it, that silent question, are you going to pretend this didn't happen? Or are we going to finish what we started? And deep down, I already knew the answer. It was another late evening when it happened. The sky outside was turning that soft pink before sunset, and the whole house had that quiet, tired feeling. My husband was still away on his trip. The weight of that loneliness hung heavy in the air. I was folding clothes in my bedroom when I heard a soft knock on the door. I knew it was him. Before I could say anything, he opened it slightly and stepped inside, careful, hesitant, but not unsure. His eyes met mine. That was it, just one long look. No words, just understanding. I should have told him to leave. I should have screamed at him to get out. But instead, I stood there frozen, as if I was waiting for him. Slowly, he stepped closer, each step feeling like a heartbeat echoing in my ears. And then, gently, like he was asking for permission with his movements, he lifted his hand and brushed a strand of hair from my face. That simple, soft touch broke the last piece of resistance in me. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was both of us at the same time. But the next thing I knew, his arms were around me, and I was kissing him back, not the hesitant, accidental kiss from before, but something deeper, something I had been denying not just to him, but to myself. It wasn't just about desire. It was about being seen, being wanted, being chosen, even if by the wrong person, in the wrong way. By the time we pulled apart, I could barely breathe. Shame burned through me like fire, but the worst part was, beneath it, I felt alive again. I felt wanted. I felt awake after years of being invisible. But I also knew something else: we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The moment it was over, the weight of what I'd done came crashing down on me like a storm I never saw coming. My hands were shaking, my heart racing for all the wrong reasons now. I wasn't proud. I wasn't happy. I was terrified, of myself, of him, of what this meant for everything I had spent years building. My marriage, my home, my dignity, all of it felt like it was slipping through my fingers in the worst possible way. Arif stood there, watching me carefully, his face a mixture of satisfaction and confusion. I could see the guilt creeping into his expression too. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, maybe to comfort me, maybe to explain himself, but I lifted my hand to stop him. "Don't," I whispered, my throat dry. "Don't say anything." Because what was there to say? How could words fix something like this? They couldn't. I left the room quickly, closing the door behind me, but I couldn't escape what I was feeling. Every corner of the house now felt tainted, every familiar sound echoing differently in my ears. Even the walls seemed to whisper accusations at me. And then came the questions, the endless parade of questions inside my head. How did I let this happen? Why didn't I stop it? What kind of woman lets this happen under her own roof? I hated myself for it. Truly hated myself. I wasn't just unfaithful to my husband, I had betrayed myself, my values, everything I thought I stood for. And the worst part was, no one else even knew, yet. But I knew. And that was enough to make me feel like I was drowning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling again, but this time, the emptiness wasn't just about loneliness. It was about shame. The kind of shame that eats you from the inside out. Arif didn't come near me again that night, and I was thankful for that. I needed space. I needed to think. But thinking only made things worse. Every memory of that kiss, of that touch, replayed in my mind like a cruel reminder of how far I'd fallen. And then, like a final slap of reality, my husband's name popped up on my phone. A message. Just one line: "Missing you. Hope you're okay." That broke me in a different way. The husband I had been so angry at, so distant from, still thought of me. Still believed in me. And here I was, hiding something unforgivable from him. I didn't reply. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say? I'm fine? I wasn't fine. I was broken in ways I didn't know how to fix. And the worst part was, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to fix it anymore. Because even with all the guilt, a part of me knew, this wasn't really over yet. The days that followed were a slow torture. Everything in the house looked the same rooms, the same furniture, the same ordinary routines, but underneath, nothing was the same. The secret I was carrying sat on my chest like a weight I couldn't remove, no matter how hard I tried to act normal. I avoided Arif as much as I could, but life inside the same house made that impossible. We crossed paths often, at breakfast, in the hallway, near the door, and every time, my stomach twisted. His eyes would search for mine, sometimes soft, sometimes questioning, like he was silently asking me, "What now?" I didn't have an answer. What made it worse was that my husband was returning soon. Suddenly, the reality of what I'd done started circling me like a hungry predator. I kept imagining the worst, that he would find out somehow, that something in my face would give it away, that Arif might slip up, or worse, that I might. One afternoon, I caught Arif staring at me again. We were alone in the kitchen, and the way he looked at me wasn't the way a stepson should look at his stepmother. There was frustration in his eyes, but also desire, and it terrified me because I felt it too. The magnetic pull was still there, even stronger because now we both knew exactly what was hiding behind it. "I'm sorry," he finally said under his breath. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." His voice was soft, almost broken, like he didn't know how to carry this either. But his apology didn't make me feel better, it made me feel worse, because deep down I knew I wasn't innocent in any of this. I wasn't pulled into it. I chose to step into that room. I chose not to stop it. "Don't talk about it," I whispered harshly. "It was a mistake. That's all." But even as I said it, we both knew that wasn't entirely true. It wasn't just a mistake. It was temptation. And the worst kind of temptation is the kind that comes dressed as comfort, as companionship, as relief from loneliness. Then the fear really started to take hold. What if my husband noticed something was off? What if my face showed it? What if guilt made me act strange around him? I spent more time in front of the mirror than I ever had before, checking my expressions, rehearsing smiles that didn't feel forced, trying to breathe normally when I felt like I was suffocating inside. And then, something unexpected happened. One night, my husband called and said, "I'm coming home earlier than planned." That one sentence sent panic racing through my body. I wasn't ready. Not ready to face him. Not ready to act like nothing had happened. And worse, I wasn't sure I was strong enough to stop myself if Arif came close to me again. I had crossed a line, and now I was standing right at the edge of another one. The day my husband returned, the entire house felt like it was holding its breath. I tried to act normal, setting the table, straightening the cushions, folding clothes that didn't need folding, anything to keep my hands busy, anything to stop my mind from spinning out of control. But no matter how much I cleaned or organized, I couldn't wipe away the truth of what I'd done. When he walked through the door, smiling the way he always did after being gone for days, I felt like a stranger in my own home. He hugged me, kissed my cheek gently, told me how much he missed me. And all I could do was stand there, stiff, pretending that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I avoided Arif's eyes the whole evening. I could feel his glances like static in the air, but I refused to meet them. My guilt was eating me alive, pulling me apart from the inside. Every word I said to my husband felt like a lie. Every smile felt fake. Every laugh, forced. But what I didn't expect was how Arif would react. Late that night, when my husband was asleep, I went to the kitchen for water, my heart still heavy with regret and fear. And that's when I saw Arif standing by the doorway. He didn't speak. He didn't come closer. He just looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, part hurt, part longing, part frustration. Finally, he broke the silence. "Are we just going to pretend nothing happened?" His voice was soft, barely a whisper, but those words hit me harder than any shout could have. I shook my head, fighting the lump in my throat. "It was a mistake," I said again. "It can't happen again." "It won't." But my voice, it didn't sound convincing, not even to me. Arif stepped forward, slowly, carefully. "You don't have to lie to me. I know you felt it too. I'm not trying to ruin anything. His words trailed off, full of unsaid things. That's when the weight of everything came crashing down on me. My marriage. My guilt. My betrayal. The risks. The shame. And worse, the terrifying part of me that didn't want to push him away. The part that wanted to feel alive again, even if it was wrong. Especially because it was wrong. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. It has to stop, I whispered. For both our sakes. He nodded, slowly, reluctantly, but I could see the pain in his eyes. I wasn't the only one breaking, we both were. I walked past him, my heart shattering with every step. That night, I lay next to my husband, who had no idea the storm I was carrying inside me. And for the first time, I realized that sometimes the deepest betrayals are the ones no one ever sees. The ones that stay hidden behind quiet dinners and polite smiles. But I knew. And that was enough to haunt me forever.